Now, what you're going to notice if you do go to the demo section, Japanese developers and publishers definitely, put out more demos than Western developers. I don't know if that's a thing where in Japan, they still value demos and stuff like that, and over here in the West, they're trying to sell you PlayStation Plus Premium. I kid, kind of. There are Western demos, like one of the games on here is from Ubisoft, and it's a demo I would recommend you to check out. But yeah, a lot of JRPG representation in the demos section, and Japanese games in general, so bear that in mind. If you're not a big fan of JRPGs, be mindful of that. Maybe you'll want to X out this video because it's probably not going to do much for you, but a lot of stuff I would recommend. All of these games I have played, so I'll give you guys my ultimate thoughts on the game, except for one game that's not out yet. You guys probably can put two and two together, but let's start off with that. So, the Forspoken demo, I didn't mention this when it initially dropped, but this is a demo I feel like everybody should play. Whenever you get an opportunity to play a new IP that's gonna be $70 and it's pre-release as a demo, you should take advantage of that opportunity and play the demo. This is really going to be the make or break it for a lot of people, because I have seen so many people that have said the same rhetoric. Forspoken, from a technical standpoint, looks incredible, but they're not completely sold on the game. Some of the gameplay elements don't click with them. Well, try out the demo. Now, to be frank, based on what I've seen, anecdotally, this is only a small sample size, I've heard from a lot of people that have been sold out of this game and have been like, yo, this is a wait for a sale, especially when you're talking about early 2023 being absolutely stacked with games. There's gonna be titles that you're just gonna have to put on the wait for a sale category. Play the Forspoken demo and decide for yourself. I actually kind of enjoyed it. I thought it had some interesting gameplay mechanics. I thought some of the dialogue was a little questionable, but, hopefully narratively, the game does pan out pretty well. Again, the demo's free. It's a $70 upcoming title, so you would be foolish not to at least try out the demo, so please go check that out. And Square Enix, again, whatever you think about Forspoken, Square Enix has been one of those publishers that have been all aboard the demo train, and it's not just games like Forspoken. Even lower key titles, as you're going to see on this list, they put out demo after demo for a lot of their titles, and they put out a demo for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, so credit to them. Like, I have my issues with Square Enix, especially what they do from the Western side of things and what they were doing for a long time, but man, they've been really on board on the demo train, and I have to give them a lot of credit for that, because a lot of publishers have kind of bowed out of that. Okay, next up, another Square Enix title, Valkyrie Elysium. This is a demo I strongly recommend you play before you buy the game, because this game is very much rough around the edges. There's a lot of issues with this game, to say the least. It's not worth $60, but it is on sale right now, I believe, for $30, which is a substantial discount for a game that came out back in late September. From a gameplay standpoint, I think Valkyrie Elysium is a lot of fun. I think, some people are going to look at it as mindless fun and it kind of gets button mashy, but with the summonings and whatnot, it does get interesting. The story in this game, nothing to write home about. Like, it's not one of Square Enix's best outings from a narrative standpoint. Unfortunately, the main character isn't all too compelling, a very stoic main character. I get that's kind of the idea they were going for, but I'd like a little bit more depth. Nonetheless, the base game is on sale right now for $30. You can get the digital deluxe edition for $45, which isn't a bad buy because it gets you Valkyrie Profile Lenneth as well, and that's a great game. So, take that for what you will. But Elysium, I had fun with it, but it's comfortably, a 6 to 7 out of 10. 7 being really the ceiling for this game, in my opinion, and you definitely do not buy this game at a full $60. Right now, it's $30. You can make the argument that you should wait for it to get even cheaper. Bear in mind that Square Enix JRPGs do have a tendency to hold up in price, and we'll get to one of those games in a little bit that has really held up in price, especially when it comes to digital storefronts. Alright, next up, here's a JRPG that I constantly gush about, Scarlet Nexus. There's a demo edition and a story demo. Whatever you want to play, Scarlet Nexus is tremendous, and if I haven't sold you on it by talking you guys to death about this game, try out the demo for yourself. I think the battle system and the combat is the highlight of Scarlet Nexus. That's what most people seem to enjoy. Great soundtrack as well. Very good story. It's just a lot of that story is told through the use of static images and more of a visual novel style presentation, which I know some people are going to be turned off by. I've played games like AI the Somnium Files, Danganronpa, so that wasn't a big issue to me, but and I should mention the game does have cutscenes for some of the bigger moments, but you know, it's few and far between compared to the visual novel style presentation. Nonetheless, combat is great, gameplay is really good, soundtrack is really good, story is really good. There's a lot to like about this game. Two playthroughs you go through, and you gotta play through the game twice as the two main characters, Yuto and Kasane, to really get the full story and all the backstory of the characters. It's a really good game. I hope it gets a sequel at some point. Seemingly, it did pretty well commercially. So, yeah, hopefully that does happen. The Ultimate Edition is the only edition on sale right now. It's 75% off for $25. It gets you the base game, season pass, digital art book, soundtrack, and some other in-game items. I would imagine that the Standard Edition is gonna go on sale once the PlayStation Store does the January 7th refresh and they cycle in more deals. That's what I would imagine is gonna happen, because that's like a glaring omission. There's stuff like this, there's stuff like I mentioned, Naruto Storm Legacy in a previous video, that's just like a glaring omission to me. And both of those games, by the way, Bandai Namco published. So take that for what you will. Alright, another JRPG. Like I said, JRPG heavy, and this is a game that I really gotta bash into people's heads just so I can, like, get this game to sell more, and that is Neo: The World Ends With You. And I think the fact that this game has a demo is a very good thing, because that's a really easy way to sell people, because the only thing you need to do with this game to be sold on it is listen to the soundtrack, because this is one of the best JRPG soundtracks that you're gonna come across. It's a lot of, songs with like lyrics attached to it as well. Like, you gotta listen to tracks like Breaking Free, and obviously there's classics like Deja Vu and whatnot. It's just phenomenal from a soundtrack standpoint. I know some people weren't hot on the gameplay, so the demo will give you a good idea of that. You have all these different pins you can use that are attached to different buttons on the controller. I think it's pretty interesting, and you have a lot of different pins to collect, and utilizing different ones in, you know, different in conjunction. I think it's pretty good. And, you know, again, the soundtrack is really the star. The story is really good, too, by the way, but the soundtrack is literally, when you talk about World Ends With You, it's like the soundtrack people will talk about first. And I know that's very atypical for a video game to just immediately gravitate towards the soundtrack, but that is the case with Neo: The World Ends With You, and World Ends With You in general. It's unfortunate that the DS version is, first of all, only on the DS, or you could play it on iPhone with the remaster. I believe it's on the iPhone and Android, and then there is the Nintendo Switch release. Nintendo Switch release is pretty good, but, yeah, I know some of you guys won't have the ability to pick that up, which is a little bit of a bummer. Nonetheless, Neo: The World Ends With You, absolutely one you should check out. And lastly, I do want to give a shout to a Ubisoft game before we round out this video. Immortals Fenyx Rising is a demo I think you guys should check out. I wasn't as hot on this game as a lot of other people. A lot of people thought this was one of Ubisoft's best outings in a long time, and for a new IP, it was really good. Some of the comedic elements didn't really hit with me. I wasn't crazy about the visual style, and again, this game was on the Nintendo Switch, so visually, you have to temper your expectations. A lot of these games, like Neo: The World Ends With You, is on the Switch as well. That game employs a very unique visual style that I could dig, but, you know, your mileage may vary on that one. Fenyx Rising does have a lot of depth to its gameplay. You've got a big world to explore, a good bit of content, and it's a game that regularly sees deep discounts. Right now, it's surprisingly not on sale outside of the Gold Edition, but the Gold Edition does get you the base game, Season Pass, 3 narrative DLCs, 2 content packs, Prism Wings, and a Rocky Quest. That's $25. Again, I would imagine that the base game would go on sale when the PlayStation Store refreshes. Immortals is also a game I would expect to go on PlayStation Plus Extra at some point here in the near future, just because Ubisoft and PlayStation do have a pretty solid relationship, so that is something to consider as well. But for now, try out the demo. It might be a game that ultimately surprises you, and if you don't care about, you know, games eventually hitting a subscription service, check it out as a free demo. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by it. Commercially, apparently there's a sequel in development. That's what I've heard, so, like, we'll see if that does come to fruition, but if that's the case, this game must have done relatively decently or acceptable commercially, so we'll see. I remember when this game came out, like, 2 months later, it was down to $20, so, you know, it's a Ubisoft game, that's to be expected, but it was, like, very, very fast that it went discounted. But that's gonna do it for me. Again, I would highly recommend you guys to take advantage of the demo section on the PlayStation Store. There's a lot of good ones. They kind of come out very quietly, and there's a lot of stuff that I didn't mention that I will mention in a future video. We'll probably do this every 3 to 4 months, where I'll go through the demo section and point out the ones that I think are quite good. Demos don't drop that frequently, but, you know, there are still some publishers rolling them out, and that's much appreciated.